I'm Noah Robertson, the Pentagon reporter for Defense News. The big news this week has been a shocking announcement from President Donald Trump, which he made at a press conference in the White House. He said there that the U.S. would have plans to take over the Gaza Strip, which has been at war with Israel over the last year. The U.S. has been playing a supporting role, helping Israel in its self-defense, but also making sure that a wider war didn't spiral out of control, which sucked up a lot of oxygen in the end of Joe Biden's administration, particularly the Pentagon. No one had on their expectations, though, that Trump would announce that the U.S. would take over the Strip, which is now figuring out a way to deal with Israel releasing the rest of the hostages from the terrorist group Hamas, and making sure that they can rebuild for the people who live in Gaza, which number about 2 million. Trump has said that people who live in the Strip need to flee and either go to neighboring states like Egypt or Jordan. Those states consider that proposal ethnic cleansing and are concerned that they would have the responsibility for 2 million people who don't want to leave in the first place. Trump has said that this would not require boots on the ground, or at least his White House office has said. And yet, at the same time, it's hard to see how the U.S. could get involved in the Middle East to do such an expansive nation-building project, one that will probably last for 10 to 15 years in completion, without having some sort of military involvement. The only time that the military in the last 2 years has been involved in Gaza was constructing a pier called Joint Logistics Over the Shore, or JLOTS for short, to deliver humanitarian aid, which was widely seen as a debacle. The military responded to this with surprise, but as always, a reminder to go and ask the White House if they need further questions. Other than that, the U.S. has been using military resources for its continued mission on deporting migrants that the U.S. considers here illegally. These have gone as far as Ecuador to this week India, which is the longest one so far, and also include a collection of 10 high threat, according to government classifications, migrants that were sent to the prison at Guantanamo Bay, which formerly held suspected al-Qaeda fighters who were thought to have participated in the 9/11 attacks. These prisoners aren't being held in the same holding cells or in the same area of Guantanamo Bay as the current prisoners who are there now, but it's part of a larger preparation that the president has ordered to make the naval station ready for an influx of migrants who are going to be there temporarily, they say. They plan to construct a tent city for this mission, which could number 30,000 migrants in the end. These people would be there temporarily as they are then deported back to their home countries, which is part of a much larger deportation mission that the president has promised throughout his campaign and now that he's back in office. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth visited his first foreign leaders this year who were in town to see him at the Pentagon. The first on Wednesday was Prime Minister of Israel Benjamin Netanyahu, who was there right after the president had made the comments about occupying the Gaza Strip. Hegseth did not respond to questions shouted from reporters on the steps near the river entrance of the Pentagon, but upstairs in his offices before meeting with Netanyahu, he said that the comments from the president were a sign of being willing to think outside the box, and that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. He said this in reference to the U.S. attempting to help with reconstruction in Gaza in past wars, and that the Middle East and countries there have not been able to succeed in their efforts so far. That will be cold comfort to countries in the region who are now terrified that the U.S. is going to pursue its own unilateral strategy toward the Strip and bypass their concerns, which would likely throw U.S. alliances and partnerships into the region into chaos. On Friday, Hegseth will have his first counterpart visitor, the First Minister of Defense from another country, visiting him. This will be Deputy Prime Minister and Defense Minister of Australia, Richard Marles, who will be there as the first leader from the Pacific, America's most important region, as it's traditionally seen its defense commitments, there to discuss what their alliance looks like for the future. Countries across the Indo-Pacific have been engaged more from the U.S. in recent years, specifically under the Biden administration's Pentagon. It's part of a whole U.S. effort to compete better with China. But now they're worried that their alliances are on shaky ground, given that the U.S. is strong-arming other countries like Panama and Denmark over Greenland, also Mexico and Canada over tariffs that Trump threatened to impose but didn't eventually do. Marles will certainly be there to make sure that the alliance is as strong as it can be, and held a call with Hegseth, his first foreign call other than Netanyahu as well, to discuss the alliance more than a week ago. For Defense News, I'm Noah Robertson.